Something that happens to a lot of people when they first start therapy, whether it's individual therapy or group therapy, is for the first couple weeks they feel a little bit better because they're finally taking action and they're excited and they're optimistic. And then this dark point hits where maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months in, they actually feel worse than they did before they started therapy. This is the entrance into an area of life I call the valley of despair. It can happen for non-therapy reasons too. It's when you start to essentially disengage or deactivate some of the coping mechanisms you use to deal with the harsh reality of what you're facing, but you don't yet have the new, healthier, more adaptive coping skills to replace it. And so what happens is all your despair, all your struggles, and all your symptoms just kind of smack you right in the face. And there's two ways out of the valley of despair. There's two ways to feel better. The first way is to power through it and try to get to the other side. So if you think of it as like literally, if you're walking through a valley, you've been up on this higher point, you get down in the middle of this deep, deep, dark place, you're not sure how much longer you have to walk through it, and you start to get nervous. You start to wonder, how far is the other side? When do I actually start to feel better? When does this start to improve? And a part of you thinks, maybe I should just go back the way I came, because I can get out of this valley by just retracing my steps. I don't have to go forward. And this is what happens to people so often in their pursuit of better mental health and getting past these challenges. And this is a huge part of why I think so many people stay stuck on the same problem for years or even for decades, is they don't know how long they have to be in the valley. And so they get a little ways in, and then they retreat and they go back up. And they say, I can't do that right now. I'm not ready to face that problem. I'm not ready to do the big scary thing. And they kind of keep themselves busy with not unimportant things, but like smaller endeavors and smaller missions. My general sense of seeing a lot of people through long-term therapeutic processes is that there are 5 distinct stages of therapy. Each stage of therapy, or maybe I should just say mental health recovery in general. Let's say 5 distinct stages of mental health recovery, because you don't automatically need to be in therapy to achieve this, although I think it's typically the most effective way. Each phase is kind of like a different level in a video game, for those of you in my audience that are gamers. When you get to, the boss at the end of a level, a lot of times each boss requires a different set of strategies and techniques to defeat. And if you go up against the next boss and you use the strategies you used at the last boss to try to defeat this one, you just get stomped and you have to start all over. And so you have to keep replaying this level over and over and over again until you learn the techniques for this level. The first stage of recovery from mental health is when people just say, I'm fine. Like when you ask someone how they're doing and they're clearly not fine, but they just say, I'm fine, because they don't want to talk about it or for whatever reason. Stage 1 is when you say, I'm fine, to yourself. Essentially, you're in denial. Things aren't great. And on some really deep, hidden level, you're probably aware of that, but you're not ready to even acknowledge it to yourself yet, let alone to other people. You are maybe starting to recognize that something is different about you, but you don't have a name for it yet. You essentially just feel defective. It feels like there is something uniquely and specifically wrong with you that no one else out there is facing. This is one of the most dangerous, deceptive lies about mental illness, is that it's just you, that you're some broken freak rather than a person with a medical condition, which is ultimately what it is. You just feel alone all the time. And what a person needs in this stage is a diagnosis. I know some of you might disagree, but I'll explain in a second. A diagnosis in a community. I am a big label guy. I know there's a lot of people in the mental health world who don't like labels, who say these are just arbitrary terms we use so that insurance will consider this a medical service and will reimburse. I could not disagree more strongly with that. The day I realized that what I was feeling was depression and anxiety, and that those were not just weakness or feelings, but that those were medical conditions that other people also have and that have treatments, was one of the biggest turning points in my entire life. Because before that, I just thought I was the world's most screwed up, defective, stupid person. And everyone else can figure life out except me. And this is just my personal moral failure. When I recognized that this is a medical condition and that there's other people out there who, at least to some degree, get it, that was a game changer for me. That's part of why I'm a psychologist and not a master's level therapist, because I truly believe that there is tremendous power in having a name for what you are going through. And psychologists typically do more on the testing and diagnosis side of things than a general therapist might. Take the morality and the judgment out of what you're going through and replace it with medical terminology, and you might start to have a little bit of hope. It's tremendously important. So stage 2, we know a little bit, we know there's something going on now, and we maybe know what to call it. Stage 2 is, I might not be fine. We're not like all the way into acknowledging, I definitely have a problem that I cannot face by myself, that I'm probably going to need some help with. And what we need here is we need information and strategy. And so this is a person who just doesn't know what to do. Like, I know I'm depressed, but what does that mean? What am I supposed to do about that? Having that label can be the start of hope and the start of progress, but it doesn't give you a sense of direction until you follow up on that and figure out, what does this mean about my brain? What does this mean medication-wise? What does this mean about my lifestyle? What does this mean about my relationships? Once you start to understand what it is that is going on, and that it's a real thing, and that, yeah, you're not fine, but you're not fine in an understood, treatable way, then you can start to strategize and figure out what to do. Now, on this visual metaphor here, stage 3 is the valley of despair. Stage 3 is when you truly can say to yourself, I am not fine. And this whole process can either be in general, like with your life in general, or it can be a specific process you go through with every major struggle you have. You might have to go through a depression valley of despair, and then separately, at a different point in your life, go through a trauma valley of despair, or an addiction valley of despair, or whatever. It's a unique process for every major struggle you have. And so this is the point where you are essentially stripped bare, where you have lost all denial. You are fully aware that there is something very wrong, and you maybe have a rough idea of what people do about that thing, but you don't know if you specifically as an individual can do it. So maybe at this point now you know, okay, so I'm depressed. That means maybe I should do therapy, maybe I should be on meds, maybe I need to make XYZ changes to my lifestyle. I know that those are the things I should do, but can I, me as a specific person, actually succeed in making those changes? Because it can be a very daunting task. Now you're looking at the other side. You're looking at this hill you have to climb now to get to the other side and actually be fine in a real way and not a pretend way. And that hill looks steep and jagged, and you're cold and it's windy and you're not sure if you can do it. There's 2 things I want to say about this phase. Something that really helps push through the valley of despair is essentially to see that other people have gone through, if not the exact same valley, a very similar valley. If you feel like you are alone in this journey and you're going to be the first person to ever climb that hill, you don't even know if it's humanly possible for anyone. Connecting with people who have been through stuff like what you have been through and are doing better at this point in their life is one of the most important parts of pushing through this valley of despair. That is why I'm a huge believer in the power of group therapy, because you see people at various different stages of their own mental health journey, and you see these people are more like me than most of the people I see out there. You see people who are functional and appear to have good lives and whatever, and half the time it's not true anyway, but it looks good. But you can easily say, well, that's not a person like me. They haven't felt what I've felt. They don't think what I think. They haven't lived the life that I've lived. But sometimes you meet someone and it's like, oh, but you kind of have. I mean, I know some of you feel that way about me, for example. You feel that you relate to me, and seeing that I'm at a pretty good place in my life, maybe that makes you feel some amount of hope and optimism and motivation. I hope it does. I'm honored if it does, because that's honestly a huge part of why I started this channel. So to help you push through that valley of despair, seek out stories or even relationships with people who you think kind of get it, who have stories like your own, and who are starting to climb up the other side of this valley. because you need to see that it is a possible thing. You need to see that it is a real thing that humans do. But ultimately, the biggest thing you need is just to keep going forward, because this is the piece where it is so tempting to just retrace our steps, go back up to where we started and say, I want to be fine. I felt fine when I was in denial and just telling myself that nothing was wrong. I just want to go back to that. That's how I want to feel better. It's so tempting. And I see so many people, they dip their toes in and then they retreat. And they dip their toes in and then they retreat. And they're working very hard and they're expending a lot of time and they're expending a lot of energy, but they're not staying in the dark place long enough to actually traverse it and get through to the other side and start to climb that opposite hill. So if this sounds like you, if this sounds like the pattern of your mental health journey so far, that you just keep kind of getting scared or getting intimidated and retreating, this may just be a matter of endurance for you. This may be a matter of being able to just stick with like the acknowledgement of, I am an addict and I want to not be. My pattern of use, no matter how much I tell myself it's normal, it's not a big deal, it's not really causing any problems, it is. Or my self-harm. I tell myself it's just a resource. I tell myself it's the only thing that helps. It's the only thing that gets me through this. I know it's screwing up my life. I know it's dangerous. I know it's screwing up my relationships. I know I need to stop. You have to really, it's so uncomfortable. It's so painful. It's so scary. But you have to really sit with that for a bit. This valley can be wide, and sometimes you have to stay in the painful place for a while to fully break through that denial and get far enough into it where you look back and say, I think it's farther that way. I think at this point, it would take me more effort to reestablish my denial strategies and get back to the point where I can tell myself that this isn't a big deal, because I've worked very hard to acknowledge that it is. I've worked very hard to get myself to the point where I believe I have to do something differently. It would be really difficult for me to lose that now. That's what a person needs in stage 3, because that's when you truly realize I'm not fine. If you can do that, and that is the hardest part. Every stage is hard, but that's the hardest stage. Stage 4, you're starting to climb up the other side. And so this is when you say, I might be fine in a real way someday. But you're not there yet. It's not easy. It's not automatic. You are working your tail off every second of every day to fight this battle. And you are starting to move, and you are starting to gain ground, and the top doesn't look quite as far away as it once did, but it's not easy. It's not yet to the point where it's easy. It's not yet to the point where it is automatic. Self-doubt starts to creep in. Imposter syndrome may show up. Hope is scary because now you have something to lose. Now you can fall. And the darkness hurts a lot more when you have started to spend at least a little bit of time in the light. What you need here is you need confidence. And the best way, biggest best, I said both at the same time, is not pushing yourself too hard or too fast. That's something I see happen to people here is they get a little panicky. Like it's a combination, I think, of optimism and panic. But like I'm actually starting to think I might be able to do this, and now I just want to go. I just want to do it all, and you start to like run up the hill. It's a steep hill, and this is true both metaphorically and in real life. If you run up a steep hill and you trip and fall, that's going to hurt. And the best way to go up that hill is slowly, is at a pace where you take your time, where you place each foot carefully so that you don't slip and fall back into that valley of despair. Because we don't ever want you to go back there again. And at some point, you are going to be through. You are going to have climbed that hill, and you are going to be at the other point where you can once again say, I'm fine, mostly. Except this time it's real. This time it's not the result of denial or defense mechanisms or fear. It is the result of having faced your demons, walked through that valley, done the hard thing, and really achieving something. Really being able to say, I made it through that. And I don't know that I will never struggle with that again, but it's going to be different. It's going to happen less often. It's not going to be as bad. It's not going to happen for as long. This has gone from the thing that ruins and controls and drives my life to like an inconvenience. an annoying thing that happens every now and then. That's where I'm at with my depression. It's not 0% of the time, but it's gone from like a thing that I thought was going to kill me and take everything away from me to like just something that's kind of obnoxious. Like, oh, I'm in a depressed mood today. That sucks. That's stupid. It'll be gone in a few days. That's where I'm at. I consider that fine. It's not perfect, but it's fine. Your work is not done when you're in stage 5. It's not. In fact, sorry to say this, your work is never done. It's not. If you have a chronic mental health condition, you're never done. It gets a lot easier. It gets a lot more automatic, but you still have to work to stay here. Because if you stop doing all of the things that got you through this valley, you can get pulled back in. Do not ever let yourself think that you are at the point where you are untouchable, invincible, and free from mental health symptoms for the rest of your life. I don't think that place exists. Maybe for people who have very mild situational struggles, maybe it does. I don't believe I'm ever going to reach that place. I'm actually pretty okay with it because my life is better than I ever thought it would be from having gone through that valley several times with several different challenges. The big struggle here is you start to question if it was really that bad. I know it was, but like it's been a while and I feel so differently now. There's part of me that says like, did I exaggerate? Was I really as depressed as I think I was? Because it's hard for me to really comprehend that that was my life once and that that's how I felt. But usually all it takes for me is like looking at a picture here and there. I'm like, oh yeah, it was everything. In fact, I think sometimes I underestimate how bad it was and how close it came to all coming to a disastrous end. I believe that recovery is not a destination, but a status that must be maintained. You don't just get there and stay there. It's a thing that you got to, it's kind of like fitness, you can get in shape, but you don't magically stay in shape just because you got in. You have to keep doing the stuff. Maybe you don't do it as often or as intensely, but you shouldn't completely stop because it requires a level of perpetual input from you. So what a person needs here is you need to remember that the stakes are still high, even though things are a lot better. Don't get complacent. Keep doing the things that brought you here, and don't let your guard down. I hope that this makes sense to you, and I hope that if you're somebody who's in those earlier stages of mental health recovery, that this gives you not only kind of a roadmap, but maybe also some hope for what the future could hold for you. It is continually my belief, and I'll say it till I die, I guess, that I don't think anyone is beyond hope. I don't think there's anyone who is just so screwed up that they cannot make it to the other side. Some people's valleys are wider than others. Some people's hills they have to climb are steeper than others. But I don't think there's anyone who has just an endless valley. I just don't believe that. And I think what usually makes it seem that way is when we keep retreating. When we go down and then we go back, and we go down and we go back, and we never go all the way through. That's what makes it seem endless, because then functionally it is. It's not an infinite valley, but it feels like it is because you never go far enough into it to see that other hill. Anyway, I think I've said all I have to say on this topic. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.